out of my head.
Hello, I have not recorded anything in a hot minute. I apologize for that. My brain's kind of been all over the place trying to get back into it, but I also keep saying I'm trying to get back into it, so who knows if this will be the time that I actually do it. I want to talk about Dirty Work. Sonically, this song isn't really my thing. I feel like it's very empty. Don't enjoy listening to it, but I do think the lyrics are interesting. I'm not going to get so much into the lore. I don't know much about Espa's lore. I don't get into it very much, but I think that the song is interesting rhetorically, and there is like one specific thing that I want to talk about with lore that's just very brief, but so if you're interested in that, keep watching. Let's just get into the analysis because that's my bread and butter. It starts with talking about world domination, but it's in a very specific pattern. So work with me here. Work with me here. It goes fragment, comma, simple sentence, down a line, fragment, unpunctuated, down a line, fragment, comma, simple sentence, down a line, fragment, unpunctuated. And I point this out because it is a very specific pattern, but also I like that it's talking about world domination as they're doing this, because when you talk about domination, especially world domination, you think of something overtaking something else. You think of things as a whole. But this is kind of portraying world domination in pieces, which I think is a very interesting way of going about it. It's not really something you see very often. I also like there's no punctuation from line 1 to line 2, so they say don't gotta say it like a groundbreaking mutant. So there is a specific way that a groundbreaking mutant would say these things, which this is the lore thing that I question. Like, is that a trope in this world that there's a way that a groundbreaking mutant would talk about things? I think that's an interesting idea to play around with. I don't know if that's intentional, but that world building, I think it's fun. I also like that they say a curse that's me from a majority POV because I like the phrasing of it, the framing specifically, because they're saying from the majority POV, not to the majority. So they're not really alienating those thoughts, from versus to kind of being more familiar. They've kind of accepted the bad guy role. And there's also just this idea of alienation versus setting things on fire, and the self-evident comment. They're really not concerned with abstraction in this way. And then they go on to say, and I don't really care if you like me, I don't want to play, I don't really want to play nicely. There's anaphora, but repetition at the end. There's 2-syllable end rhyme. They're talking about the right choice equaling the wrong choice, justification of the bad going on. And they also say, open your eyes, come and bite me. Now, they're opening their eyes, but not asking them to literally bite them, obviously, which calls into question the literal nature of them opening their eyes, which is significant because, as we talk about often on this channel, it's a very significant thing in literature to have figurative sight versus literal sight. Figurative sight being something that indicates greater moral knowledge, whereas literal sight is kind of limiting you to just kind of normal moral awareness, I guess you could say. Then we get to the chorus. So sharp teeth, bite first, real bad business, that's dirty work. I like how there is a lack of punctuation in the writing, like sharp and teeth. There is a pause in the enunciation, but there's no punctuation there. So they're talking, about biting first, about speed, but they're moving slowly. There's an ease to how they're talking, and we're feeling how it feels to be the one moving fast. To other people, they're moving so fast, it's hard to keep up with them. But for them, this is easy. They also kind of list these different perceptions, bold eyes, cold stare, and they're focusing on looks. They're not focusing on openness, despite talking about opening eyes, which is interesting. They also go on to in the next verse say, I'm not an it girl, more like a hit girl. So they're saying more like, there's kind of an approximation going on, which kind of suggests that the self might not actually be entirely evident. They talk about the mafia ties, which is basically like a basis for their identity. And they talk about fear in their eyes, I'm always watching, call me the reaper, I'm knock knock knocking. This is interesting because they're referring to watching, and they're referring to eyes. They're not referring to her eyes, but the watching is also, it's involving eyes. So she's watching without fear in her own eyes, and that's a disparity that's going on, and developing this motif of eyes. They're also kind of clarifying her motivation, they're clarifying her role. There's some onomatopoeia going on. In the next verse, there's even more identification going on, with it's me, a little baddie. Just because I'm pretty doesn't mean I don't do hard things. There's an aspect of looks versus reality. There's also punctuation is important here because they say hard things, comma, make me feel like a thunder. So they're almost telling the hard things to make them feel like a thunder, which I think is interesting. And they're saying, let me think, whatever I do, I will like it, like it. They're asking them to let her think. So there's this kind of determination there's kind of determination paired with openness here. And then they say sharp eyes, fierce look. So I have to question, do sharp eyes bite first / look first? And then there are commands going on. Hold tight, get tough, which is interesting. Commands are interesting because you have to question who we're talking to. Like, is this an apostrophe? In the sense of an apostrophe, that would be talking to someone who isn't there. So I think it's kind of interesting to contemplate because there's this idea of world domination. So everyone is kind of boiled down to one person because it's just kind of one entity that you are controlling. But are they there? Is this all a farce? Maybe it is a farce. Maybe is the Black Mamba still involved? Maybe the Black Mamba has something going on where they think they're in control, but they're not really in control. I didn't know this was a theory I was going to throw out. This wasn't a theory I had, but it is something that could be interesting. Just the idea of it being an apostrophe and this not being literal, or at least they think it's literal, but it's not exactly what is going on. There's some dramatic irony going on, even though we might not have it yet. And then they talk about, we don't see you as a threat. They talk about seeing, again, bringing up eyes. Flimsy rule is just a pane of glass. I do it my own way, break it, get on it, with my 2 feet easy. It's interesting to talk about breaking glass in terms of sight because, again, lacking sight is shown as making you more aware, making you more knowledgeable. It's having figurative sight. So in breaking glass, like something that could help you see, you might be getting more awareness. But I don't know if that's necessarily the intention, but I don't like to limit myself to what I think the intention of the writer was. I hope that's clear. I think that analysis is more fun when it's creative. There's also just this idea of bodily awareness, talking about your foundations with my 2 feet easy, your foundations, your feet. And we talk about going low, 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 drop it low, 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 low. Your 2 feet are low, and then you bring it up to your eyes, which we've been talking about repeatedly. Look into those 2 eyes. Well, you already found it. They will reach that level, the level of their eyes, to end this agony that they have been describing throughout this song. That's what I think. I think that that is about all I have to talk about. I will say I created an Etsy. I am going to put up some K-pop stickers and possibly other K-pop stationery. I haven't gotten to it yet. Right now, all that's up is my writing resources, a couple of them that I've made. I have more, but I'm just trying to like feel it out, see what is successful. Am I allowed to say that? So if you're interested in writing resources, please check that out. Pick my brain a little. I don't know. In general, like, subscribe. I don't like saying those things. I don't find them fun. But like, subscribe, leave a comment. Honestly, more than liking and subscribing, I appreciate comments. Comments give me life. So please leave a comment. Tell me what you think. I'd really appreciate it. Yeah. And hopefully you guys are glad to see these videos back. Hopefully, I don't know. Trying to make them better. This is just me ranting not ranting, rambling at this point. Hope you're having a good day. Yeah. Bye.